she was having infantile spasms, which they're a big deal, but they're not as big a deal as what we on Thursday. I FaceTimed into the meeting with our neurologist, and they were like, "Yeah, she has this mutation. There's only been it's called ALG13. There's only like 60 cases of it ever, and it's basically just a mutation that really delays her development." So I'm like, "What the hell?" I'm like feeling guilty because I'm like, "Okay, it went from being the best week of my life to the worst news I've ever had in my life to it was just trying to balance those emotions. Was
The last one. It's kind of a crazy situation that you stepped into, right? Because you were getting ready for the Contender Series your second time around, and then they gave you a fight offer a month, I believe, ahead of when you were supposed to fight. So you were in camp, right?
3 weeks. I was in camp. The whole week was insane, bro. Like I got the call on Wednesday. Me and Colin flew out Wednesday, like afternoon, got there late. It was too late to even test. So we got there like 9 o'clock, went straight to our hotel rooms. Thursday, my daughter had an appointment with a neurologist because she's got some issues. She was having infantile spasms, which they're a big deal, but they're not as big a deal as what we on Thursday. I FaceTimed into the meeting with our neurologist, and they were like, "Yeah, she has this mutation. There's only been it's called ALG13. There's only like 60 cases of it ever, and it's basically just a mutation that really delays her development." So I'm like, "What the hell?" I'm like feeling guilty because I'm like, "Okay, it went from being the best week of my life to the worst news I've ever had in my life to it was just trying to balance those emotions was pretty unreal." I remember before I walked out to the fight, I was like, "Damn, man, I kind of hope this goes 15 minutes so I don't have to think about her future or my future with everything that's going on for at least 15 minutes." And so the highs and lows of that week, like it was the craziest thing I've ever experienced in my entire life.
Yeah, I cannot imagine, man. Like you're going in there with like a heavy heart, dude. To me, it's like it's hard to battle and keep that out of your mind, right? Were you thinking about that throughout the fight, or were you able to shut it out?
I was able to, I don't know, I was thinking about it in the warm up. I was thinking about it the day before. I was thinking about, man, I'm not with my wife. My wife just got this terrible news, and I'm not with her right now. Like, do I need to be with her? What am I doing here? How's this going to shape my future? What's this going to look like for my daughter going forward? And, because it's a pretty serious thing. Like 95% of the kids that have this are nonverbal. Uh, Pretty much all of them need their parents their whole life. And I'm 27. I'm pretty young. She's my first child, and I feel like I'm still trying to figure out how to be a dad. And then you throw that on top of it. I was just like, oh, what the hell are we doing? And we're trying. Like we're hopeful, and we try to stay positive. But yeah, I mean, it's still tough. But we're getting into more of a routine a little bit, and it's a lot of not knowing because it's such a rare thing. I'm at the Children's Hospital out here in Denver is one of the best hospitals in the country, but this is the first time they've ever seen this, and so they're working through it like we're working through it. So it's not easy. Definitely wasn't easy to fight. I don't want to say that's why I didn't perform the way I should perform. I thought Nick fought a great fight. He did what he needed to do to win. I felt like I was a shell of myself. I felt like I had my moments in the fight, but I just didn't really put together a complete performance. And when I look back at it, I'm like, I don't even really remember the fight. I don't remember the walkout. I don't really remember too much from all of it. So, I mean, I think I had a heavy heart and a lot on my mind, and that definitely played a role in my performance. I think that was a winnable fight. That's why I took it on short notice. I mean, I was originally supposed to fight him on Contender, so I liked the matchup and stuff. It just wasn't my night, and it was a rough week for sure.
Not remembering so much about the fight, that could be a positive thing, right? Moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. I've gone back and watched it since and just been like, dude, what were you doing? Like, I felt like I was winning the exchanges on the feet. I felt like, and then I would do something stupid, like I would take a bad shot, and I'm like, why did you do that? Or like working on the wall. I was just not doing things that I are pretty routine and basic to do. And looking back, it's hard to watch because I'm like, that's not who you are. That's not the kind of fighter you are. And then I think the biggest thing I learned was at the end of that third round, I remember thinking like, well, damn, I have a lot more to give. I have a lot. and it's tough to leave a fight feeling that way. I don't want to ever leave a fight feeling like I can give more ever again, you know? So that's a good lesson I learned.
What did you do after the fight? Immediately after, the weeks after, did you step away a little bit and say, I need to focus on my family? Or did you get back in there and kind of try to balance it out right away?
My wife and them were out there, so I took like a couple days. They came out to Vegas. I just hung out with them, kind of decompressed because, you know, I was in the show now. I was in the UFC. I felt good about that. But I was pretty much right back in the gym, you know. Me and my wife sat down, we talked. She's a super talented fighter. You know, she had a career in the UFC, and she was looking to make her comeback and all kinds of things. And it was just tough because we were introducing a lot of different medicines to our daughter. She was, it's just a tough situation with trying to deal with her. You know, it's not like we can just drop her off with a babysitter because of everything she's got going on. So my wife basically told me, she's like, you know, you're in the UFC, you got to train hard, you got to work hard. And I'm going to kind of take over this role of caretaker and parent right now. And I'll put my dream on the back burner a little bit for you. So I really didn't, I mean, after that talk, I was like, you know, I got to get back in. I got to get ready because I like to stay active. I like to get fights quick. And fortunately, I think this one took, I mean, there's going to be 6 months in between these two fights. And I'm happy for that because we're kind of, not that we're in a more stable position, but at least there's a better understanding of like, okay, I can deal with these emotions a little bit. You know, I might have a bad day. My wife might have a bad day. My daughter might have a bad day, but it's learning to deal with that. And I think if this fight was like 4 months ago, I'm still trying like a lot. I'm still learning, obviously, but 4 months ago, it's like, okay, there's more bad days than good days. Now I feel like we're getting more to like a 50-50, which makes it a lot easier to train and focus on the goal.
That's great to hear, man. And before you get into this training camp for your upcoming fight, do you work on anything in particular that you felt like in the last couple of months that you need to kind of freshen up on?
For sure. I think my mindset's a big thing. I've really upped my cardio. I've worked for this camp. I've added like 3 extra cardio sessions a week. I've added 2 extra privates a week with Coach Mark and our jiu-jitsu coach, Professor Scotty, which has been really huge for upping my game. And then I've also worked with a nutritionist for the first time ever. You know, I don't cut a ton of weight, so I would eat whatever I wanted, and it wasn't really conducive to being the best athlete I could be. Now I still eat a lot. You know, my weight's not really changing much, but just my composition's different. I'm putting proper fuel into my body, which is helping a lot. But yeah, I mean, I've changed a lot of things mentally. We always have a book of the month at Factory X, and I didn't really keep up with that in the past. And, you know, Dustin Jacoby was like, hey man, I really think this would be super beneficial to you. I think you should do it. So I've just been keeping up with that, and all those things have been great, to making me a better fighter. I also feel like my first year and a half at Factory X, I was learning so many new things and just like building my skills, because I've only been a fighter for right at 4 years, a little over 4 years, amateur and pro. So, you know, I'm still pretty new in the game. So I was just building skills, building knowledge. And now it's more about like funneling it into a actual game plan of this is how I go compete. This is how I have to beat people instead of just go out there and fight, you know? So that's been huge. This camp's really been focused on how do we make you the most effective fighter you can be with the skills you have. And like I said, I'm glad it's been 6 months because we've had a lot of time to put work in.
Yeah, and you mentioned Dustin Jacoby. He's also in camp alongside you, and he told me spoke to him earlier about you guys being together and being training partners and helping each other out a lot. It's vice versa, right? It's just he's
Yeah.
a great guy, man. I love talking to
Boy,
him.
man. DJ's my boy. I always say like when I go, because he's had me corner him his last like 3 or 4 fights, and it's always the best. I get to go out there with him, and he's such a good time and such a confident dude. Like after a week of being out there with DJ, I'm like, I can beat anyone. We're gonna beat everybody. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm going out for his fight on March 5th, and then he's gonna corner me the next week. So that's a relationship I really cherish. You know, it's been a really good thing as training partners, but also just as people. You know, he's like you said, he's a great dude. He's a good person to have in your life, and I'm thankful for him.
Yeah, vibing is. I think that's such a an important factor during a training camp. Vibing, energy. You know what I mean? Because you want to have the right energy around you, because it affects your mentality at the same time.
For sure, you know, and the better you know people, like, you know, if someone's having a bad day, you can pick them up, and
Hmm.
you know how to pick them up, and yeah, it's good. I think we have a lot of that at Factory X. It really is like a family, and uh, it's been huge for us. You know, everything fighting wise and in my personal life. You know, we don't have family out here in Colorado other than our Factory X family, so their support has been really important to me and Bobby as well.
Now, your upcoming opponent, man. When you break him down, what do you see?
I mean, he's a specimen for sure. He's super explosive. But I see a lot of holes. I think he's tricky. Like everyone thinks, oh, he just throws really hard, but he's got tricky trips. He's got good judo, but I think he's got horrible cardio. And sometimes it's like, oh, was it just a bad fight or not? But every fight I've watched in the UFC, his cardio's not really been up to par. No one's really pushed him hard in the wrestling, but when he did get wrestled by Ankalaev, he had nothing for him off his back. And other than being a power puncher, I don't really see, he doesn't have like great form striking. He doesn't have high volume. He just throws really hard. And he's a specimen, like I said. And I think I proved when I fought William Knight on Contender Series that I'm not afraid to go fight a specimen. That guy is probably the most jacked dude in the UFC. And I felt like I was doing really well in that fight. And now I'm at my actual weight class. And I really like the matchup. I think he has one way to beat me, and I have every way to beat him. So that's always a good feeling.
Yeah, I look at it from afar. What I mean? It's like on the technical side, you have a lot of advantages.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel like my wrestling, I feel like he's never really had someone who's willing to be in his face and kind of invite that crash, because he is dangerous, man. And I do think, he has a lot of knockout power. He throws hard. I just feel like if you don't knock me out, if your only way to win is to knock someone out, as the fight progresses and goes longer, that declines and declines and declines, especially when cardio is a big weakness of yours. And I feel like I said, I feel like I can knock him out, and I feel like I can put a pace on him that'll break him and kind of really take away his advantages. I go out there, take him down in the first round, and just, we call it cook. But if I go cook on him the whole first round, it's a completely different fight in the second and third. And his game plan's kind of screwed. It's like, how am I going to knock this kid out? I can't even pick my arms up. So he, on paper, it's like, damn, that guy's scary looking. But like you said, I feel like I have a lot of technical advantages. I feel like I'm growing so quickly as well. Like the guy you saw fight Nick Maximov was a much better version than the guy you saw fight William Knight. And the guy you're going to see fight Dalcha is a much better version than the guy you saw fight Nick Maximov. So I'm excited for that.
Is that what you envision in this fight? Is that you're going to go in there, cook him, and maybe TKO him on the ground like some old school Tito Ortiz style?
Yeah, I think for sure, like, I'm just gonna wear on him. Like, everything he does is gonna be labored. And my chances for finishing the fight go up drastically as the fight goes on, and as his explosion kind of goes down. But also, I feel like I'm a really good athlete, man. I feel like I'm explosive. I feel like I'm dynamic. So I don't feel like his edge is really that big. I just feel like if I follow this game plan, it's an easy victory. You know what I mean? And that's not to say he doesn't have his chances. He doesn't have his moments. Like, I think the first 4 minutes of this fight are going to be chaos. I think he's going to come out. He's going to throw really hard. He's going to be explosive. He's going to do what he does. But after 4 minutes, that fight gets a lot easier. And especially if I'm wearing on him and everything you do is I'm heavy on your head. You're having to carry my weight. But yeah, I see that. I see me putting a hard pace on him, putting hard pressure, and finishing in the second, third. I do see a finish, though. I think I'll get him out of there as the fight progresses.
All right, a few more questions outside the fight. MMA fans, man, they are some of the craziest, some of the best too at the same time, some of the worst. What do you think MMA fans obsess about too much that fighters really don't care about?
Um, that's a good question. I think MMA fans obsess over the shit talk way more than fighters do. I think at this point, maybe in the beginning, like when a lot of guys weren't talking shit and it was a new thing, maybe fighters were like, what the hell, man? Why are you doing that? But I think nowadays it's such a common practice, and there's multiple reasons for it. You want to get under the skin of your opponent. You want to drive up money. You want to do all these things. But I think for the most part, fighters are like, man, I don't really give a shit what he's saying. We're going to get in a fight. I think the culture of the sport has evolved to, I don't care about that shit talk as much. And that's why it doesn't hit like it used to. Like when Conor McGregor and Chael Sonnen kind of had first started talking shit, everyone's like, this is so funny, it's hilarious. And now everyone's like, it's just corny. Like, let's just fight, man. Who cares? But the fans still are, big fans of it. They love that. I think that's probably one of the biggest things the fans look more into than the fighters. That and stare downs. For some reason, fans are like, man, he looked away at the stare down. I think he's going to get knocked out. I'm like, no, bro, I just didn't want to stare at this guy for 10 minutes.
Maybe he has bad breath. You know what I mean? What's up?
It's those little things that, like, well, that's a tell, man. He's nervous. scared. But I don't think fighters really give a shit about that kind of stuff.
For sure, for sure. PTSD, man, in combat sports, like from injuries, even like weight cuts, damage taken in a fight. Have you ever experienced this and overcame it, or seen it in other people?
I've seen it in other people. I've been pretty fortunate. I feel like I've never been like brutally knocked out. I've never had like a really bad weight cut. I tried to be pretty smart my whole career with how much weight I'm cutting, how I'm doing it. And then I've just been fortunate to not take a ton of damage in any of my fights. But, I have seen it in other fighters that get clipped pretty bad, knocked out, and then it takes them a while to get back into it. And then also just like the wear and tear on your body, and I don't know these fighters personally, but I see differences in them. Like Nate Diaz, you watch some of his interviews in the beginning of his career, and then towards like now, and it's like that's a different guy. You can tell he's taking a lot of damage to the head. But I also see like, he took a year and a half off, and when he came back and started doing interviews again, his interviews were much better. The way he was talking was much better. So that's a scary thing. I feel like it doesn't get enough. Like you see them talk about it a lot in the NFL. I think part of that is the NFL is so much older than the UFC and MMA. I think in the next 10, 15 years, you're going to see a lot of issues in terms of like CTE and brain damage with fighters. I also think that the general public is more willing to accept it in fighters, because you don't hear about it in boxing too much either. And boxing's been around forever, because I feel like there's this attitude of like, well, that's what you sign up for when you were like, I'm going to get punched in the head. Whereas with the NFL, they're like, well, I don't think they're signing up for that, even though it's a contact sport. You know what I mean? So I see it in current fighters too, and I'm like, damn, man, I don't think you should fight anymore. And if I was your friend, I would tell you I don't think you should fight anymore. Like, I think it's really sad, like with Tony Ferguson, you know what I mean? Like some of the stuff that he's got going on in his personal life and things like that. Like, I'm never one to judge. I'm never one to be like, man, this guy's a crazy dude, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But he's just got, you can tell there's stuff that's not right going on. And you don't know if that's him and fighting, but I would imagine it's a combination.
All right, one last thing. Kevin Lee, he got cut from the UFC. He gets signed by Eagle FC. He's being paid in crypto. What are your thoughts on cryptocurrency? And would you ever consider being paid your full fight purse in crypto?
I don't have a lot of thoughts on crypto. Leave that to DJ and those guys. But I'll tell you, I would, if it depends on what crypto they're going to pay me in. And before I did anything, I would hit up James Cross and say, James, is this what I should do? And if he said yes, I would 100% do that, because that guy is the smartest guy in the UFC when it comes to money. I have no doubts about that. I don't even know anyone else who's smart with money like him. He is a genius when it comes to money. So if I ran it by him and he's like, looks like a good deal, I'd be like, no more questions needed. I'll sign the dotted line right.
All right. Well, you signed the dotted line, man. March 12th, UFC Fight Night. Thank you so much, Cody, for the time, and good luck on the rest of the camp and the fight and with your daughter as well.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.